And you're going to kick us off this week, Matt.
Indeed. So my number 5 is Wolfenstein 3D, which would have been on the PC, which I don't know if you're familiar with as a game.
I know the game, but I've never played it.
So the sort of premise of the game is you're in a castle, and you're running around this castle with sort of various guns and weapons. Killing Nazis is the theme of the game.
It's a light-hearted game.
It's a light-hearted family favourite. But for me, it was my first experience of PC gaming. So game on a computer. A friend of my mum's at the time, we used to go and visit them, and sort of the guy had a PC, and it was quite novel to me. I had a NES at the time, and sort of you use computers at school, but not to do anything exciting. And having access to the computer was cool enough, and I knew basic things, how to load it. And this game loaded in DOS as well, because it's quite an old game. It's 1992, I believe it came out. It was around then. But the sort of the impact it had on me was the sheer violence in it, and it was that, it's in a positive way, not in a oh my god, so look at this violence. But at the time, and it's probably a bit alien now because there's so many violent games and adult games, but at the time, if you come from playing Mario or whatever, and like those sort of games, and they're really cool, and I love them as they are, to loading up this game and you're being handed a gun and you're just killing all these people, and there's blood spraying out and there are bodies on the floor, and you're in this situation. And it was named 3D. It was one of the first games where you was actually going down corridors and stuff like that, and it was just so intense. Sort of playing it, and almost that sort of breakthrough moment in my sort of 13 or 14-year-old mind, thinking, oh, this is what we've talked about. This is what being friends have thought. Would it be cool if you could do this and go and shoot people? Which sounds funny, but it's that escapism thing, and it was just mind blowing.
Did that come out before or after Doom?
Before Doom, as far as I'm aware. Because watching the High Score documentary that we're talking about with John Romero, who sort of developed it, and Doom, that was sort of the predecessor to Doom. So sort of as well, I was going to say, playing Wolfenstein and then going around the same person's house at a later date, it's oh, got Doom now, and that was then the next level of, my God, this is you got all these ridiculously large guns and blowing aliens apart and things like that, and it was just so different from anything I'd ever played at the time.
I feel like that must have been one of the kind of the first blocks of the type of games that it's led to today, like your Call of Duties and things like that. Because I remember probably the first one I would have played of that ilk would have been Doom, and that was on the PC. And thinking about back then, I think the next one that was like a next generation version of that would have been something like Duke Nukem, if you remember that. And again, like, them games were what everyone's playing today, just kind of 20 years ago. So it's mad to think. I do remember him talking about that on that High Score, that Wolfenstein, and there are kind of modern day versions of it as well, I think.
Yeah,
you have talked about it before.
Yeah. Well, I've never played any in the newer ones. It was one of those. It's weird. It's one of those games that I played then and absolutely loved it, and I remember spending hours sitting at that computer playing it. But I don't know. I don't know whether it's because in a way it's attached to that original sort of one. When you apply all there have been a few games recently, like Mortal Kombat has come out and things like that. And it's all shiny and glossy and all this sort of thing. It's not quite. Yeah. It's not quite got the appeal to it.
I agree. Well, my number 5, and I don't want this to come across as it being it's so low down on my top 5, because the game is epic. Don't get me wrong. But the reason I put it as my number 5 was because it was my introduction into gaming. It was my first game, but it did go on for a longer period than that, and that's Mario, as in the franchise itself. my first console that I had was a Nintendo, the NES, and I just remember playing Mario all the time. And I had so many awesome games on there. I mean, we talked about it a little bit with Paul last week about some of the classic games on the Nintendo. But Mario just is, even now today. I'm digging out my classic mini version of the NES and playing the Mario's 1 to 3 with my 3-year-old and getting him used to kind of operating a controller that's not too kind of cumbersome like a PlayStation or an Xbox controller. So he's almost learning at the same kind of speed that I did back in the day. Although I can't remember being that lucky to have something like that when I was 3.
Yeah.
But I mean, the Nintendo was an awesome little console in itself. But Mario for a platform game, and even playing it now, I'm still like, me and my son were playing it last weekend on his when it was his birthday. And he's just turned 4, so correct me there. My wife will probably be listening, so I got my son's age wrong again.
It is his son.
Yeah. We're still waiting for confirmation, but anyway. And even I was getting frustrated playing it now as a 34-year-old.
Yeah.
You know, some of the levels, because I'm thinking easy, and I'm just running, and I'm dying easily on it, and I'm just like, God, why can't I just? I should be acing this game, but that's a sign of how good the game is. Really, you can still struggle on a game, a basic platform game, and maybe it's because games have moved on so far that we're almost anticipating certain things to happen, when back then it was a lot more patterns. I mean, again, I keep reflecting back to high score, but you see some of these guys that went on to these kind of contests and competitions. And they said the training that they done was learning what the patterns of the game were. There would always be a certain, on something like Sonic, for example.
Yeah, there's the guy on high score talking about Sonic and learning how he could get the most coins and
exactly
rings.
Because there was always a pattern to. And even when I'm playing this, the more times I die, the more I'm like, oh, I'm just going to speed through this now because I know exactly where. And you can see probably what you didn't see as a kid, really.
Yeah.
But the character, the games, I think. I only played them up to the SNES, so I didn't. Once I had a PlayStation after SNES, so Mario was obviously going down the N64 route and Gamecast and Dreamcast, sorry, and I didn't go down that route. So yeah, but even on the SNES, the games were awesome, just absolutely awesome. And I do think the 3D element of it, I did have a go on one of the 3D versions of Mario. I don't think it was quite as good.
Well, I'd love, because I'd followed a similar path. Had a NES and then the SNES, and then went onto a PlayStation and had that for years. Dipped into it with a GameCube, but playing one of the recent games, Super Mario Odyssey, is incredible, and that's a 3D sort of. You can run around sort of the open sort of world and things like that, and it's got the thing I love about sort of the Nintendo games, and Mario is in my top 5 a little bit later, is the magic, is the only way I can describe it, that Nintendo put in there. And there are bits in Mario Odyssey where you'll run up to a wall, like you're 3D and you're running along, you run up to a wall and you go into the wall and it turns into a 2D, like the old Mario game,
version,
and you run along, you're jumping over the blocks, and you come out, and then you pop out, and then you're like the 3D Mario again. It's just so cool.
That is
little bits like that are just wonderful.
And also, just as a side note to that, Mario Kart. I mean, probably one of the best, other than the different sizes of your characters, and they might have. I mean, in the later versions, I think they could open up different weapons or whatever, or things to use,
shells and so on.
Yeah, like one of the best like racing games. I know we talk about the graphics in Gran Turismo, in Forza, and games like this. I mean, they're off the chart. But for an actual competitive, either against the computer or against your friends or whatever. I mean, on the SNES, I think that was the first Mario Kart was on the SNES.
Yeah, it was.
Like, unbelievable. And we recently played it with a friend of ours. He's on his, what are they called?
Switch.
Switch, yeah. So,
which is an incredible game. The one on Switch, which is 8, Mario Kart 8, something like that. There's been loads of them now, yeah, and that is phenomenal. Again, playing that with the boys, you're right, it is such a good driving game, like the feel of it. And then you got things like motorbikes in the newer ones as well, and they're really cool.
Yeah,
and playing with those. But yeah,
Mario.
love it.
Like I say, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in more when we come to wherever it is in your top 5. But yeah, awesome game and kind of what got me into gaming, I would say. So my number 5.
Listening transmission over.